9 Stoic principles to let go, stay calm, and reclaim your peace. I used to think my life was perfect. I had a successful career, a nice apartment, and a busy social calendar. On the outside, I was checking all the right boxes. But inside, there was this creeping sense of emptiness. I felt like I was running on a treadmill, constantly busy, but getting nowhere that felt meaningful. I was connected to everything, yet totally disconnected from myself. The noise of my life had simply drowned out its purpose. It took one quiet, unexpected moment of clarity to realize just how lost I was. It was a Tuesday evening. I was sitting on my living room floor, surrounded by piles of work I'd brought home, the only light coming from my laptop screen. Outside, the city had its usual frantic energy. My golden retriever, Rocky, padded over and just rested his head on my knee. He didn't want anything, no walk, no treat. He just sat there, looking up at me with these deep brown eyes, completely and utterly present. In that simple, silent moment, something inside me just shattered. Looking at him, I saw a creature totally at peace, living completely in the now. And in his reflection, I saw myself, a man stretched thin, anxious, and profoundly absent from his own life. My perfect life was a house of cards, and my dog had just gently, lovingly knocked it all down. That moment was a painful awakening, but it was also a beginning. It sent me searching for a way back, a path to reclaim the inner peace I didn't even know I'd lost. That search led me to an ancient philosophy, one forged in the crucibles of the Roman Empire, but perfectly suited for the chaos of modern life. It led me to Stoicism. Today, I want to share the 9 principles that helped me let go, find my calm, and get my life back. Principle 1. The dichotomy of control. Focus only on what is yours. The first and most foundational principle in Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. It's a simple but life-altering idea. Some things are within our control and others are not. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave and became a respected teacher, put it this way: some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and, in one word, whatever are not our own actions. For years, I'd been pouring all my energy into the wrong buckets. I'd obsess over what my boss thought of my presentation. I'd worry about what friends would think if I cancelled plans for a quiet night in. I was anxious about flight delays, traffic jams, and the stock market, all things completely outside of my control. This constant fight against the uncontrollable was the source of so much of my anxiety. It was like trying to command the tides, a pointless and exhausting exercise. The Stoics teach us to perform a kind of mental triage on our worries. When a problem pops up, the first question to ask is this mine to control? If the answer is no, if it's about someone else's opinion, an external event, or a mistake you made in the past, then your job is to practice acceptance. This isn't just giving up. It's an active, courageous choice to save your energy for the one area where you can actually make a difference: your own thoughts, judgments, and actions. My journey started when I applied this to my work life. I couldn't control if a client would accept our proposal, but I could control the quality of the proposal itself. I could control my preparation, my professionalism, and the effort I put in. So I detached my sense of success from the outcome and attached it to my effort. The result was transformative. The anxiety that used to paralyze me before big meetings started to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. I was no longer a victim of circumstance. but the master of my own response. This is the first step to peace, learning to distinguish between your business and everyone else's, and focusing completely on your own. Principle 2. Manage your emotions through rational judgment. This second principle flows right from the first, and it gets to the heart of our emotions. Have you ever been stuck in traffic and felt that surge of rage, as if the traffic jam itself was a personal attack? The Stoics would say, the traffic isn't the problem is your judgment about the traffic. They believed that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of those events. The great Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius, wrote in his private journal, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." This idea is a game changer. It means our emotions aren't random, uncontrollable forces that just happen to us. They're products of our own minds. Anger, fear, jealousy, these feelings are all rooted in judgments. We judge a situation as bad, threatening, or unfair, and the negative emotion follows. For me, this was huge. I'd always seen myself as a naturally anxious person, like it was hardwired into my DNA. The idea that my anxiety was something I was partly creating with my own thoughts was both daunting and incredibly empowering. The practice here is to create a small gap between an event and your reaction. When you feel a negative emotion start to rise, just pause, interrogate it. Ask yourself, what judgment am I making that's causing this feeling? Is that judgment actually true? Is it helpful? I started doing this with social media. A mean comment from a stranger could ruin my whole day. I'd feel a spike of anger and shame. By pausing, I could analyze my reaction. The judgment was, this person's opinion matters, and they think I'm a loser. But does a stranger's opinion really matter? Is their judgment based on knowing who I am? Of course not. The external event was just pixels on a screen. My judgment about those pixels was the source of my pain. By consciously reframing my judgments, I started to reclaim my emotional autonomy. You don't become a robot without feelings. You just stop being a slave to every passing emotion. You become the calm, rational observer of your own mind, able to choose reason over reactivity. You realize your inner peace is far too valuable to hand over to external events or other people's opinions. Principle 3. Live according to virtue. In our world, we often measure a good life by what's on the outside: wealth, status, possessions, achievements. The Stoics offered a radical alternative. For them, the only true good is virtue. The goal of life isn't to acquire things, but to cultivate an excellent character. The 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, or self-control. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote that virtue is that perfect good, which is the complement of a happy life, the only immortal thing that belongs to mortality. Living a life of virtue means your actions are guided by an inner moral compass, not by chasing external validation. It's about asking yourself in any situation, what is the wise thing to do, the just thing, the courageous thing? What does self-control require here? This framework gives you a stable foundation for your life, one that can't be shaken by market crashes, social rejection, or bad luck. You can lose your job, your money, and your reputation, but no one can ever take your character from you. After that moment with Rocky, I started to see how my life had become unmoored from any real virtue. I was chasing success, but was I being wise? I was networking, but was I being just? I was busy, but did I have the courage to say no to things that didn't align with my values? So I started journaling, not about my goals, but about my character. At the end of each day, I'd reflect. Where did I act with courage today? Where did my self-control slip? Where could I have been more just or wise? This shift from external achievement to internal character was profound. It reoriented my entire definition of success. A successful day was no longer one where I closed a deal, but one where I acted with integrity, even when it was hard. It was being patient with a frustrating colleague, temperance, speaking up for a fair solution, justice, having a difficult conversation I'd been avoiding, courage, and making decisions based on long-term principles, not short-term gains, wisdom. This principle doesn't just bring peace, it brings a deep, unshakable sense of purpose. You're no longer just living, you're striving to be a good person, and there's no more fulfilling pursuit. If any of this is hitting home for you, and you're looking for more ancient wisdom to navigate modern life, take a moment to subscribe. We explore these ideas in depth to help you build a more resilient and peaceful life. Principle 4. Practice mindfulness and presence. Just like my dog Rocky, who was so completely in the moment that he woke me from my own anxious trance, the Stoics understood the power of the present. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at the time, constantly reminded himself in his journal to confine thyself to the present. He knew that most of our suffering comes not from our present reality, but from regrets about the past and anxieties about the future. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, the only time we ever truly have is right now. Our modern world is an engine of distraction, constantly pulling us from the present. Our phones buzz with notifications about tomorrow's meetings and yesterday's news. We eat our meals while scrolling through feeds, half tasting our food, half absorbed in a digital world. We are everywhere except here. This chronic distraction is a huge source of our inner turmoil. We're haunted by ghosts of the past and phantoms of the future, never letting ourselves find solid ground in the present. Practicing Stoic mindfulness is about bringing your full attention to whatever you're doing. When you're eating, just eat. When you're walking, just walk. When you're listening to someone, actually listen instead of just planning your reply. It's about anchoring yourself in the reality of now. Marcus Aurelius advised focusing on the present task with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice. For me, this meant reclaiming my quiet moments. Instead of grabbing my phone first thing in the morning, I'd take a few minutes to just breathe and feel the sensation of being alive, a precious privilege, as Marcus noted. On my walks with Rocky, I started leaving my phone at home. I focused on the feeling of the leash in my hand, the sound of his paws on the sidewalk, the way the light changed in the sky. I started noticing things I'd been blind to for years. The world became more vibrant, more real. By pulling my scattered attention back to the present, I found that my anxieties about the future lost their power. They are, after all, just thoughts. The present moment is reality, and in that reality, I was almost always okay. This is how you reclaim your peace one moment at a time. Principle 5. Embrace adversity as a path to growth. One of the most powerful Stoic ideas, and one of the hardest to swallow at first, is that we shouldn't just endure hardship, we should embrace it as an opportunity. The Stoics believed that just as exercise strengthens the body, challenges strengthen the mind and character. Seneca put it boldly, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. He even went so far as to say that a life without misfortune is a life untested. You never get to find out what you're truly capable of. This reframes every obstacle. A tough project at work is no longer just a burden. It's a chance to practice patience and resilience. A fight with a loved one isn't a disaster. It's an opportunity to practice compassion and communication. A personal failure isn't the end. It's a lesson in humility and a chance to get back up. As Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle isn't blocking the path. The obstacle is the path. To put this into practice, the Stoics used a technique called voluntary discomfort. This means periodically and intentionally stepping out of your comfort zone. You could take a cold shower, fast for a day, sleep on the floor, or have a difficult conversation you've been putting off. The point isn't to torture yourself, but to build psychological resilience. By willingly experiencing minor hardships, you inoculate yourself against the fear of major ones. You prove to yourself that you can handle more than you think. I started with cold showers. The first few were awful, a real shock to the system. But after a week, something shifted. I realized the dread before the shower was far worse than the shower itself. And the feeling of accomplishment afterward of doing something hard by choice was incredible. This small practice taught me a huge lesson about adversity. Our fear of suffering is almost always worse than the suffering itself. As I applied this mindset to bigger challenges, I found a new sense of strength. I stopped seeing adversity as something to be feared and avoided, and started seeing it as a sparring partner, there to make me stronger and tougher. Principle 6. Prescribe yourself a character and live by it. Who do you want to be? It's a simple question, but one we rarely stop to answer with real intention. We're often shaped by our environment, by what others expect of us, or by our own reactive impulses. Epictetus urged a different path. Imagine for yourself a character, a model personality, whose example you determine to follow, in private as well as in public. In other words, don't just let your character happen by accident. Deliberately design it. This principle is all about proactive self-creation. You decide what virtues and standards you want to live by, and then you hold yourself to them. You're essentially creating your own personal code of conduct. This isn't about being perfect. It's about having a clear ideal to strive for. When you're faced with a choice, you no longer have to wonder what to do. You can just ask, what would the person I want to be do right now? This was a profound exercise for me. I sat down and actually wrote out the kind of man I wanted to become. I wanted to be someone who was patient, not reactive. Someone who was honest, even when it was inconvenient. Someone who was disciplined. Someone who listened more than he spoke. This description became my North Star. It wasn't a mask to wear for others. It was my own blueprint for my own development. When I found myself getting frustrated in a meeting, I'd remember my prescription: be patient. When I was tempted to tell a white lie to avoid an awkward conversation, I'd remember my code: be honest. This act of holding myself to my own chosen standards built a powerful sense of self-respect. I was no longer a ship tossed around by the waves of my impulses. I was the captain, steering by a fixed point on the horizon. The key isn't to become this ideal person overnight, but to consistently practice it, to make it a law you live by. This daily practice of aligning your actions with your chosen character is what forges true self-mastery and peace. Principle 7. Detach from outcomes and external validation. In a world obsessed with results, likes, promotions, victories, the Stoic principle of detaching from outcomes is maybe the most liberating of all. The Stoics taught that we should place our value on our efforts, not the results. Why? Because our efforts are within our control, while outcomes often are not. Our choices are up to us, but the results are subject to luck, chance, and the actions of other people. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. It just means you shouldn't tie your inner peace and self-worth to achieving them. Whether you get the promotion, win the game, or get praised for your work is external. What matters is that you prepared with diligence, you played with integrity, and you did your work to the best of your ability. The reward for a good action is the action itself. I saw this pattern so clearly in my own life. I'd work tirelessly on a project, and if it was praised, I'd feel a temporary high. But if it was met with criticism or indifference, I'd be crushed. My emotional state was a roller coaster, completely dependent on external validation. I was outsourcing my happiness. To practice detachment, I started focusing on the process instead of the prize. Before a presentation, my goal was no longer to wow the audience. My new goal was to prepare diligently and speak with clarity. The first is an outcome dependent on others. The second is an action completely in my control. This subtle shift was monumental. It took all the pressure off. I could perform with a sense of freedom and calm, knowing I had already succeeded just by doing my part well. This applies everywhere. In relationships, you can't control if someone likes you, but you can control being a kind and honest person. In creative work, you can't control if your art becomes famous, but you can control showing up and creating something true to yourself. By detaching from outcomes, you free yourself from the fear of failure and the needy pursuit of approval. Your sense of worth becomes internal, solid, and unshakable. Principle 8. Cultivate gratitude and acceptance. The human mind has a weird tendency to focus on what's wrong, what's missing, and what we don't have. This negativity bias kept our ancestors alive, but today it's often just a source of chronic dissatisfaction. The Stoics offered a powerful antidote: gratitude and acceptance. Not the cheesy Hallmark card kind, but an active, philosophical gratitude for everything as it is. As Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This practice is about consciously shifting your focus from what you lack to what you have. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but it does mean appreciating the vast foundation of good things we so often take for granted. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. This is about loving your actual, specific, real life, not some idealized version you wish you had. This principle hit me hard when I thought about Rocky. For years, I had this loyal, loving companion right beside me, a source of constant, simple joy. But in my relentless chase for more, I had become blind to the profound gift that was already there. I started a simple practice. Every night before bed, I'd write down 3 things I was grateful for that day. They were often small: a warm cup of coffee, a productive hour, the way Rocky wagged his tail when I walked in the door. This simple act started to rewire my brain. I began actively looking for the good in my day. My default setting slowly shifted from scarcity and anxiety to abundance and appreciation. Seneca believed that nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances, but it completely changes your experience of them. It calms the restless mind and allows you to find contentment right here, right now, with the life you actually have. Peace isn't found in getting what you want, but in wanting what you have. Principle 9. Seek support and learn from others. The popular image of a Stoic is usually some lone, emotionless guy, enduring hardship in total silence. But that's a caricature. The ancient Stoics were deeply committed to community and the common good. They knew we're social creatures and that we learn, grow, and find strength by connecting with others. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we were born for cooperation, like 2 rows of teeth working together. Seneca argued that a philosopher's main duty is to be useful and help others. No one can navigate this life alone. Seeking wisdom from mentors, support from friends, and perspective from our community isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. It's admitting you don't have all the answers and that we can all grow faster and stronger together. Seneca advised his friend Lucilius to associate with people who are likely to improve you. This is about curating your social circle, surrounding yourself with people who challenge you, support you, and embody the virtues you want to build in yourself. After my journey into Stoicism began, I stopped trying to project an image of having it all figured out. I started having more honest conversations with my closest friends about my anxieties and my search for a more meaningful life. To my surprise, a lot of them felt the same way. These talks weren't about complaining, they were about sharing struggles and strategies. We became a small support system for each other. This principle reminds us that philosophy isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's a lived, shared experience. Whether it's through reading the great philosophers, joining a community, or just having a vulnerable conversation with a trusted friend, we need to seek out wisdom and support. We are not alone in our struggles. The path to a peaceful and virtuous life is one we walk together. Conclusion. When I look back at the man I was, sitting on the floor with my laptop, drowning in anxiety, I barely recognize him. The journey from that moment of hollow perfection to a life of inner peace wasn't instant. It was a slow, steady process of applying these 9 timeless principles, one day at a time. The world outside hasn't really changed. There's still traffic, there are still demanding clients, and there's still uncertainty. But what has changed is the world inside me. It all started with my dog Rocky, who, in his beautiful simplicity, taught me the most important lesson. Just be here now. That moment led me to the Stoics, who gave me the tools to rebuild my life on a foundation of purpose and resilience. I learned to separate what I can and cannot control, to manage my own judgments, to live by a personal code, to embrace challenges, and to find gratitude in everyday life. I learned to let go of needing the world's approval and to find strength in my friends. Reclaiming your peace isn't about blowing up your life and starting over. It's about changing your mind. It's about realizing, as Marcus Aurelius did, that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The tranquility you're looking for isn't in some future destination. It's right here inside you, waiting to be cultivated. You have the power to let go, to stay calm, and to reclaim your peace. And it all starts with these ideas. What about you? Which of these principles hits home the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you found this helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more wisdom on living a better life. Thanks for watching.